Good afternoon.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Tikel Archer, your co-host for this evening. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Caribbean Youth Regional Council Masterclass on Enhancing Youth Employability. I look forward to the valuable insights. Our presentation will surely bring to this evening panel. Without further delay, I hand you over to Jared Salvery, our board member for training and development.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As Tikel would have said, my name is Jared Salvery. I am CRYC's board member for training and development. So this session, would basically be one of many that we would have had under the training and development portfolio. Today, we, decided to have a little, spin on things and focus more on youth employability. Right, when we look at youth employability, sometimes we see persons, they have jobs and they are unable to keep the jobs that they have, or, they're in the workplace and they're not motivated at all. Sometimes they encounter various difficulties and don't know how to, position themselves to overcome these challenges they face in the workplace. I know we see it fit, well, timely to have this session. Because a lot of persons would have finished exams, whether it be at school, well, secondary school, whether it be at university, and they're just at a place where you're just looking for meaningful employment, right? So this session, as I would have said before, I think it's timely, just to give some persons some insight into the employability aspect of things, what it takes to be employed. I know Kimberly, as well as Cindy, right? Kimberly Chan, Miss Kimberly Chan, and Miss Cindy Wilson. I would say, Kimberly is not a stranger to CRYC at all. Right? She would have been here before, and we are excited to have her here to share, and we'd have definitely received a lot from her previously. Would also consider them, persons who are dominating their fields, the fields of HR, the fields of IR, right? So we're definitely looking forward to hearing what they have to share today. Right, so, in the interest of time, we just jump straight into the session, and I would just like to hand over to Anastasia. Okay, unfortunately, I'm not seeing Anastasia on. So I'd go straight into introducing Kimberly, right? So as I would have said previously, Kimberly, certainly no stranger to CRYC. Ms. Kimberly Chan Wujram is an active human resource and industrial relations professional with over 15 years experience in these fields. She also has experience in the fields of accounting, health and safety, communications, credit and risk, etc. She is currently pursuing her doctorate in leadership and is the holder of an MBA General, UK Bachelor's degree in Human Resources, several diplomas in mental health, Human Resources, Legal Studies, and over 50 certificates in HR, accounting, leadership, psychology, law, project management, IT, etc. Presently, she is the manager, people and culture at a regional company within the financial services sector. She has also held several other leadership roles with experience within the education, financial, manufacturing, retail, and oil and gas sectors, locally and regionally. Additionally, she has consulted for organizations in the education, oil and gas, and financial services sectors. She also serves on the board of directors at the Human Resource Association of Trinidad and Tobago in the capacity of Education and Research Officer and Chair of the Editorial Committee. She's a member of several associations, which include, but is not limited to, the Association of Business Executives, Caribbean Corporate Governance Institute, Association of Female Executives of Trinidad and Tobago, Student and Professional Organization of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Human Resource Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Mrs. Chan Bujam also lectured in the fields of HR management and leadership, sales and entrepreneurship. She has also been an active volunteer for the past 10 years, offering her services to several organizations. She lives a life of charity with her service dedicated to children, education, and the environment. She's also known for her work and support of health causes, particularly persons with cancer, and is also known for leading recycling projects in several organizations. Kimberly is also a motivational and business speaker and has spoken at primary, secondary, and tertiary level institutions delivering career development, resume writing, interview skills, etc. She has delivered presentations locally and regionally. She has also authored several articles which were published locally and regionally. She has also represented Trinidad and Tobago at the local and international level of several beauty pageants, and is the holder of the Gold Key to Cebu City, Philippines, awarded by the mayor in 2018. She's also the recipient of the Award of Honor issued by the Chaguanas Borough Corporation for her valuable contributions. Ms. Chan Bujam is the Interim Project Relations Officer and the Executive of the Chaguanas Police Station Council. Her greatest accomplishment thus far is being a mom to her beautiful daughter. So, having gone through all of that, we can definitely say, Kimberly is a young person with a wealth of experience, right? So, the fact that she's here today, I hope that, the persons tuned in, they will, you all will benefit from what she has to present. Now hand over to Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Jared. I'm flattered by that lovely reading. I listened to myself, but thank you so much, and thank you to the Caribbean Regional Youth Council for having me once more. It is always my pleasure to be with you all and to share in these sessions. So my part today, I am already sharing my screen. So I'm going to get straight to it because you know how much I like to ensure that we are on time. So today I'm actually going to talk about self-management. And you already know I am Kimberly Chan Budram, but on all social media, which I know lots of persons usually will connect after, my LinkedIn is just Kimberly Chan. So we're going to talk a bit about self-management and really what is self-management. So before I go to the definition, I want to say that self-management is exactly what it says. How do you manage yourself? And self-management is really the ability to regulate your behavior, the way you are seen, the way in which you behave, what are your thoughts, how your emotions come across, and most times, and hopefully in a very productive way. It really means excelling in both your personal and your professional responsibilities for the benefit of yourself and your team. And today, we're actually talking to young professionals and persons who want to get into the workspace. And a lot of you on this session are either professionals trying to get into career or are early in your career. And for those of you who are entering your career, you have the personal part of things. You may already know who you are as a person, how you feel about certain things, what are your views. And that's well. And then there are some of you who may not be sure about, what are your views or where you stand on certain things. But this session is really for us and self-management to tie in how we maneuver from that personal space or personal views or values into that professional setting, and how we integrate ourselves with the values of an organization, or how do we treat with, let's just say, the organization is in a different view. You are big on, an example might be someone like me who's big on recycling and would like to lead recycling projects, and you go into an organization where gas is escaping and they are saying, no, that's just a little bit, we don't need to spend the money on that because we don't have have funds to tap the leak or something along those lines. And it takes this balancing of your personal thoughts, what is the ethical thing to do, balancing what the organization wants you to do in terms of ignoring it and really meshing. So I'll talk a little bit about how to make sure that when your values don't align with organizations, what are some of the things that you can possibly do? And what you can do is you can try, obviously, in the first instance, to have an amicable conversation, talking respectfully and politely, because sometimes as young professionals or young people, we are so passionate about things. When people don't align or they go against what we believe in, we don't know how to control our emotions, and we might do things or say things like, okay, I'm going to pick up my bag and leave because this doesn't align with this, and my parents will take care of me. I don't need to work. But you always have to remember that there's implication to those things. There's the implication of what reference you might get from that employer. There's the country and the patriotism part of it. If I allow that leak to continue, then other people's lives is at risk. So we want to learn about how we can actually balance and what are some of the techniques that we could possibly use to get our seniors or the persons that we report to hear our value, hear what is our opinion, and really our persuasive skills in terms of how do we get them to actually do what we want them to do, or what is the right thing to do. So I will go straight into a couple of the self-management skills. And some of the self-management skills are stress management. And stress management could be different for different persons. So a lot of what I do in terms of working with persons who don't manage their stress well is I will talk to young people through my affiliation with Lifeline, and there's this 24-hour hotline that people can actually call, and they can talk about when they're stressed or any particular issue that they may be having. But you recognize that these things are in place, and there are two gaps. One of the gaps is that a lot of people do not know about these institutions, don't know about these hotlines, and they feel overwhelmed and they feel stressed, and they just don't know who to turn to or don't know that there are avenues. And then there's the other element of it and the other gap, which is our own self. So we know that we are stressed, we have these issues, and we don't want to speak out, or we don't know how to speak out. So really managing stress from that perspective. So you always have to know, what are your stressors? What are the things that will actually stress you out as a person? Once you recognize what are some of those things, you have to make sure that you don't put yourself in those situations, or don't allow yourself to become stressed. And here we will talk about stress at work, and we talk about stress at home. So we do have stress at home, and employers like to tell us, leave your problems at the door. And all of us here know that is almost impossible to do. You must learn how to balance it. And that's why, for me as an HR practitioner, I always try to get involved in knowing what's going on with my employees. I'm not prying or breaching their privacy or trying to ask them their business, but at least try to understand the simple things. Understand if they have young kids, understand if they are treated with ailing parents, if telling them to come to work at 8 o'clock when medication has to be administered to the ailing parent or child at 8 o'clock, or the child is starting school at 8, and understand how I could eliminate some of those stresses for my employees are important. But as an employee as well, you also have to understand that the employer can become stressed. So there are several things that we can do to manage the stress, and one of them certainly is to be able to identify what are our stressors, see how best we can eliminate or stay out of those scenarios or situations. And then you also want to be able to recognize and learn yourself so well enough. How do you manage the stress? Things that you are going to do, or how are you going to treat with the stress. And there's so many things that can happen. Some people try yoga, some people try talking to a friend, some people even do the illicit things. Some people may decide they want to drink alcohol, they may want to use a substance. And this is where I want to focus, because you already know about stress. So I'm not going to talk to you here about stress. I'm going to tell you that there are so many channels and ways that you can help to de-stress without being pressured to do something that is unhealthy for you or harmful as young individuals. So, as I said, to just sum it up, stress management, understanding what the stress levels are, what causes the stress, and what works for you that's not going to be harmful, whether you do yoga, whether you listen to music, whether you take a stroll on the beach. You are the only one that is going to know that. No session that myself or Cindy or anybody else could do could particularly tell you how to deal with it. What we can do is provide you with support and ideas, but you have to understand, you have to learn, and you have to take the time as young professionals to do that. Because many times persons don't know how to manage stress. They go into the workplace, they become stressed, and they crumble. They crumble in the sense that deliverables are not met. They blurt out at people in the workspace. They become verbally abusive, they use obscene language. And of course, those are things that HR write you off for. So I think that's a little bit about stress management. So some other of the management skills would be like time management. How do you really manage your time? And again, time management is a lot about what works for you. So time management for me might mean my day starts at 4 a.m., but for someone else, their day may start at 9 and probably end at 11. So looking at what works for you in your scenario. Time management in the workplace is not only about what works for you, but what works for the organization, because you cannot decide as an employee, my workday is going to be 9 to 5 if the organization operates from 8 to 4 and you are perhaps the receptionist answering the telephone. So you have to know how to also prioritize. So time management synchronizes with how you prioritize your work, not only, again, and this is why we talk to young people about this. It's not only about what you want. And we've seen from COVID, many organizations operated in the hybrid environment, and everybody wants to work from home. But is that structure going to work for all of us? Are people capable of managing their time when they are not being supervised? So just to understand that time management could mean keeping a checklist, working outside of regular hours, being flexible, prioritizing. If you're working on a project, you may have tighter deadlines. You may be allocating certain. So time management also means allocating chunks of time. I'm not saying I have 5 tasks and 5 hours means 1 hour per task, but rather recognizing which one will take longer. And part of what I do personally with time management is I recognize that I perform better in the night. So if I have a policy to write per se, I prefer to work in the night and do something like that. The regular task, because I'm not a morning person, I might look at reviewing leave or typing letters. Regular tasks that I'm comfortable with, I would actually do in the morning. In the night is when I will do any task that requires a lot of brain power. And that's usually the flip for most persons. Most persons actually perform better in the morning. One of the other things I do is usually people set Mondays for meetings. I know that I'm tired from the weekend because the weekends are very a time that I relax. So I try my best not to have meetings on a Monday. And again, you have to know what works for you, but it just can't be about your decision, but has to be about what is working for you and the organization. What are your commitments and what level you operate in the organization? Communication. So I'm not going to touch a lot on communication because I know my colleague Cindy is going to go a lot into communication, but what I would say in terms of managing yourself, managing the way in which you communicate, and that speaks to a lot about body language. It speaks about your tone of voice. It speaks about how you approach people. And I always say to professionals and young people that communication is shown Communication actually shows your level of respect. How you communicate with someone will tell that person or me or someone listening how much respect you have, and really looking at your nonverbal. So a lot of young persons have spent and still do spend a lot of time behind computers, just like I am doing now. But when they go in front of someone, they're not accustomed sitting. So one of the things that people do, and I know, as I said, Cindy will talk a bit about this, is even how you clasp your hands, the amount of hand movement that you have, what does your facial reaction say versus what your words are communicating. One of the big ones for me is someone saying sorry, but not saying it with meaning, or not practicing it, or not proving. So that's what I want to say. So when you think about managing yourself, you have to know what you want to sound like, how you want to appear, and what your communication is, and then how clear, how concise, what is the message you want to send, what is the medium of the communication. If you have an issue with a colleague, are you going to send an email, or are you going to have a conversation first? Are you going to copy someone? Are you going to blind copy someone? So communication will really go more in depth. Self-motivation. So when we talk about self-management, and I always like to use myself as the example. So when people read my bio, like Jared will have just done, people would say, well, how do you balance it? How is it possible? You are this age and you've accomplished so much. And I always say it's a self-motivation. And it's a self-motivation, and I use these platforms to share a bit about me to help you all to understand, because I know in this audience there may be people who may be living through the experiences that I had. So I actually come from a family where my parents did not even write CRYC. And the thing about it is like I had nobody around me who could have taught me accounting or HR, or who even understood any of these things. But there was a drive within me because I wanted to be something more. And I only wanted to be something more because I wanted to be somebody. I wanted people to know who I am. And I wanted to make my parents proud because I saw how much they sacrificed. And my parents gave me as much as a secondary school education. Everything after that I'm responsible for. And it was because I was self-motivated, and each of you have the power to self-motivate, but you have to find it in you. And for those of you who have kids, that's the biggest self-motivation that you can actually have. Anybody who is living in poverty and wants to come out of that, there's an opportunity for you. And I actually want to commend each of you on this session, because part of you actually taking the time, taking your Saturday afternoon out to even join this session speaks a bit about your self-motivation and your willingness and your desire to learn and to grow. And it is commendable when young people use these platforms, and people like Jared and the rest of the team at this Caribbean Regional Youth Council put together things like this, because it also says that they want to help people who are self-motivated. So self-motivation, again, that comes from within you. Different things drive different people. One of us may want to get out of Trinidad and get into the US, working in a large company, and that may be your motivation. I may want to be having vacation and sipping margaritas somewhere, and that might be my motivation. Somebody may want to drive a Ferrari. Somebody may want to help their parents out of poverty. Somebody just wants to be able to eat a meal that is proper, or go to a fancy restaurant, and different things motivate people. So you have to find it within yourself and see what actually motivates you. Organizational skills is very, very critical for any workplace, whether you're working in a warehouse, whether you are the cleaner. And I like to use the example of the cleaner for organizational skills, because people often think only when you work in an office, you need to be organized, and you need to know how to fix the paper on your desk, and you need to make sure you have a clean workspace. And that's not true. Every single job that you do, you need to have organizational skills. And let's use the cleaner. cleaners often will say, and I've seen it in different organizations, they will want to come first thing in the morning to clean the bathrooms. And then I would say, well, why would you clean the bathrooms first thing in the morning and then you have to go clean the kitchen? You're cleaning the dirtiest place and then you go into this place where people need to eat or probably to wash utensils, or depends on what the cleaners do and if you have separate people. So my preferred style of the organizational skills would be to clean the bathrooms at the end of the day. So that's actually when you, the cleaner, is going home after, you can get a shower, you don't have to remain with any kind of germs or filth from the bathroom. And then in the morning, you don't have to see the bathroom as the first thing. And then the bathroom is clean when people get to work. So this is just a part of organizational skills. Again, organizational skills and how you build that. It's always, and I keep going back to, this is all about you as the individual. I'm sure each of you on social media and sometime must have seen a photo with somebody in an old house or board house, and it's so clean, and people jump out and say it's not about the type of house, but about your cleanliness and all of that. And that is the truth. It comes from you as a person. Learning and organizing. Part of organizational skills would obviously go back to prioritizing. You have a list of 10 things to do. How do you organize the priority of doing it? Whether it is answering the phone, filing, doing invoices, or is it cleaning the bathrooms before? Is it a sales job where you visit clients 2 days a week and then you fulfill the orders after, and then you follow up with collections? Organizational skills, again, it's not only about you as the individual, but when you go into a workspace, what works for the workplace, what is feasible, because you can't be in a sales job, and I've had salespeople before come in and they say, listen, I prefer to work in the office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and pick up orders on a Thursday and Friday. And I'm saying, but you can't do that, because the driver of the vehicle that delivers in these areas on a Thursday and Friday. So again, for young people to understand the rhythm of the organization. And when you take on a role, you should not only focus on what you do or what your department does. The best and the greatest success that I have found is people who work in organizations and has learned the entire value chain, the entire process, whether it is manufacturing, delivery, oil and gas, because you are able now to organize your work better, because you can now say, if I don't do this, then this step cannot happen. It is also about recognizing that everything in the workspace, so we are young professionals, and when we are at home, we can do what we want because our parents will work around us. We have to remember, when we go into the workplace, we are also part of that process. We are one step in the flow. So somebody depends on what we do for something else to happen. So it can't be that you alone decide when something is going to happen. How do you organize your physical space? And I talk a lot about physical organization as well, and physical organization from the perspective of how you also present yourself. And I know we've done this before, and I know CRYC always does these things in terms of presentation of ourselves, but how we organize ourselves personally, how we put together our dress code, how we keep our physical workspace, whether we have paper strewn all over, files not properly punched in, things upside down. All of those things speak to organizational skills. And if you present yourself in one way, it is almost certain, and my colleague Cindy will I'm sure attest to this, when people physically present themselves in one way, and they come for the interview, we already know how your work is going to be, because you haven't taken the time and the pride in presenting yourself. So organizational skills is a lot. It's a lot of physical, it's a lot of preparation, it's a lot of preparing your work, what steps you take, what you do first, what you do last, and all of that. Accountability is a big one for me, and I found that young people don't take accountability. And accountability for your actions. Accountability means being responsible, understanding that if something goes wrong under your purview, you are accountable. Understanding that when you get to a managerial or leadership position, everything that falls apart or comes together under your purview, you are accountable for it. When I talk about accountability, I always like to say, let us put aside the blame game. I have often found, and I'm saying it because we're speaking in this forum of youths, is that somebody will say, well, it was not my fault, that was delegated to this person. I couldn't do my part because this person didn't do theirs. But I remember at my age, if I had to do perhaps a school project that somebody wasn't doing their part, and it mean that I would get a low grade, I would probably not buff them up, or maybe buff them up, but I will make sure everything gets done. Whether it means that I have to remind them, help them, probably get it done, it means that I was accountable for my own scores. Within my team, when I manage people, I assign tasks and I don't micromanage unless I have to. And if I have to micromanage, more than likely, it's not going to be a workable relationship. When I have my team, if my team has to write 6 policies for me to review, and I realize by the day before the deadline, I cannot get it, it means that I have to step in as a leader and I have to get the work done. And that's accepting and being accountable for anything that falls under my purview. And one of the things that I always get, people always say, Kimberly, why do you apologize so much? And I said, it's just how I grew up. It's just that if something isn't done and it's even beyond my control, but I'm a part of a team and something fell apart, so I would say, oh my God, I apologize. How can I fix it? Or if the team has to get something done, somebody isn't doing it, and it means that we're going to look bad, or the organization is not going to get the business and I need to sit and write a proposal that's not even under my purview, I would say, listen, how can I help? And how can I help is also being accountable. Some people see it as, why are you taking on additional work? But I don't see it as additional work. I see it as, if I help someone in accounting, it means that I have learned how to do a proposal. I have done something above and beyond. And that is part of accountability, not only for you as a person, but for your team, not only for your team or your department, but for the company. And young people often don't own organizations. You have to go into an organization and say, this is my organization. I want to see every aspect of this organization succeed. And if it means that somebody isn't getting served downstairs by the teller, I am going downstairs and I'm going to sort it out. Or I'm going to help somebody type a letter because some other manager or staff is not there. No, none of this attitude of that's not on my job description. HR practitioners and business leaders do not like to hear that. And adaptability. So adaptability is one that I think that youths and young people are great at. I think that young people and people in the age bracket of you who are within this call and this platform today, I think you all are good and good and very good at this, because I've seen the flexibility. I've seen that it's easier to get someone within the youth bracket to sit in a cubicle and then tomorrow get up and say, okay, we don't actually have an office for you. We have 10 cubicles and we have 20 people. Not everybody comes to the office. So when you come to the office, you sit where you want. And that's not an issue. I've seen how great within COVID, the younger people were more adaptable and were easier for them to go and work remotely. So yes, we did have the issues of managing them and they're doing things or stealing time and all of that. But it was so easy for them to pick up their computers and go into their workspace, even their physical spaces, because they already had a laptop in some cases, somebody already had a desk. It was no big issue. I have found that more mature people are less adaptable and not only to physical space, but even to changes and change management. And I do a lot of work around change management, particularly in the last couple of organizations that I would have worked in. And I would use my interactions, at least in the last 2 organizations that I've worked in, with adaptability and doing change management and significant change management, and seeing where the younger people were more adaptable. Even when it came across as negatively impacting them, they were able to share in the vision and actually see that things must change. And as young people, as you grow and you mature, you have to remember that the only thing that is constant is change. And that may sound like, oh, Kimberly is saying what we've already heard. People have wrote that quotation, made it into a meme and all of that. But that is the real thing. You always have to change. COVID taught us that. And even in the absence of COVID, before COVID, you knew that the only thing that happened consistently was change. And you have to be able to change with the time. You have to be able to see the bigger picture and understand why things are being done differently. You also have to charge your own self with the responsibility of finding new ways to do the same thing in a better way, shorter time, getting a smoother result. So that's some of self-management, understanding how to adapt to change and how to accept and see change in a positive light and not at first, because one thing that I do is whenever I have an idea and I go to my team, I put this paper down and I would say, I am sure all of you will say no. And then I pitch the idea to them, and when they will all tell me how it will not work. And then I will raise the paper up and I'll say, you see, I knew all of you would have told me how it will not work versus how it will work. So now that I've built a good relationship with certain of my peers, they already know, do not come and tell me, don't tell Kimberly how this will not work, or don't tell Kimberly what is the issues with these things, but rather say, Kimberly, this can work. However, these may be the negatives or these may be the gaps. And it's not because I always have a great idea, but it is a lot because I want to get people to think outside the box and not only to be negative, but also, so if there's, even if it's an idea that if I say the moon is going to be blue today, you know, that may be impossible, but I like people who would probably come and say, you know, that may happen in 10 years, you know, because science will change things and there's somebody who wants to do something. But really it's about being positive and seeing the light in certain aspects. And just to wrap up a little bit, some of the self-management skills that you certainly need to have is self-disciplinary management. Disciplinary management is one of the toughest things that HR practitioners have to do, and it is why we now have IR added to HR. And self-disciplinary management is recognizing when you have not done something that you were supposed to do, or you did something that you were not supposed to do, and how you're going to fix it. And again, accountability, owning the responsibility for the inaction or the action of something that should not have been done. Self-performance management, you have to be your own critic. You have to be honest with yourself. So even if you don't want to tell someone, or you don't want to tell your manager where, you know, I missed the deadline and I didn't give 100%, I should really score 50. It is about being honest with you. So you don't have to tell anybody, but you have to be able to manage yourself, and don't know within yourself that, you know what, I performed at 40%, but I'm going to fight my manager to give me 50%, because if I don't get 50, I'm not going to get the bonus. All of that ties back into accountability. Self-care management, I cannot speak enough about how important it is to care for yourself. So not only work-life balance, where an organization is responsible for taking care of you, but you have to invest in taking care of you, whether it means a skincare routine, whether it means a good walk in the park, whether it's going to the gym, whether it is doing yoga, whatever it is. Again, it will come from what your stressors are. Think about what stresses you and then how you can eliminate that stress and turn that into your self-care management. It is sometimes impossible. It is time that you have to carve out, but certainly it is important. Especially as young people, we need to carve that time out. Self-mastering and learning, understanding what your key strengths are, what you are best at, and focusing on those things, not forgetting the areas that you still need for your job that you may need to work on. But self-learning is important. Self-learning is very easy. People can't tell me I don't know how to self-learn. Now you have YouTube videos that you can look at. You have LinkedIn Learning. You have Google Learning. You have reading a book. You have simple things like big leaders, Steve Jobs and all of these big people posting on their LinkedIn about their success stories, Oprah Winfrey, Steve Harvey. All of these are people who have been successful, who's had downtimes, who's grown. Use it as self-learning. Everybody like to listen to videos. I don't want to see young people, and I've told just recently I delivered a presentation and I said, don't let me walk around this room and see you all scrolling Facebook, because we are past that stage. Young professionals should now be scrolling LinkedIn. The same amount of time you spend on Instagram, spend on YouTube, learning something. The time that you spend on Facebook laughing at memes and creating something silly, spend that time scrolling LinkedIn, seeing who you should connect with, who you can learn from, how have all of these people been successful, what they've been through, listening to some of those success stories, committing to a 5-minute or a 2-minute or even a 30-second motivation video every morning makes a significant difference in your life. Self-quality management, you know what you stand for in terms of your work. What is the quality of work that is acceptable for you? What are the things and the people and the values that are displayed that you want to associate yourself with? Self-career management, you want to know how do I manage my career? Because often, and I've heard it as an HR practitioner many times. So what is the organization doing for me? What's the organization's plan for me? What is the succession plan? And I often hit people back with the question, what is your career development plan? Where do you see yourself growing in this organization? What do you think is the next role within this organization that you would like to hold? And you tell me that, and then tell me what are the steps that you are taking, and then I will tell you what are the gaps and what you need to do to get that, and if there's an opportunity or how I can help you. Don't come to someone and ask them what is their plan for your career. You have to manage your career. You have to know what you want for you, and you have to work for it. Yes, organizations have a responsibility to support, create opportunities, develop, offer training, but the first responsibility starts with you. Again, tying back to accountability, that's the biggest thing here that I want to keep reiterating. Self-finance management. Of course, you have to be able to manage your finances, and just to sum that up, because you all already know this, make sure you are not spending more than you're earning. That's one, because you'll be in debt. And then the other thing is ensure that you portion your funds and you live within your means. So if you know that your priority is one, taking care of a child or your parent, or you have to pay your loans first because you need your car to do your job, then those are the things that you satisfy before you decide to go to a party or purchase new clothes or get your hair or your nails done. And nothing is wrong with those things, but I want to tell you all that I am manager of people and culture, and I do a million things. As you heard from my bio, I have a couple different income streams. I'm not wealthy, but I do have several income streams, and I can sit here today and I can tell you that not every month that I could afford to get my nails and my hair done. And it's not that I can't financially afford it. It's just that I know that I am working towards getting a property, or let's just say purchasing a new vehicle. So what are my priorities financially? So I will choose not to get my hair or makeup professionally done to do the session, because I know the goal is greater. Self-development, I would say we tied a lot. We spoke a bit about our self-learning, and a lot about self-development is looking for people that can mentor you, looking for new ways of doing things. So you have Cindy and I on this session today. I know that we can certainly say we are people who are here to mentor, grow. Many of our colleagues do that. We are committed. We have a group of us who are committed to helping with the development and the growth of young people, and even more mature people who need it and want it. And I can tell you, if you really want to develop, you will listen to the Oprah Winfrey, you will listen to the Steve Harvey story, you'll reach out to Cindy or on LinkedIn and say, listen, I want to do HR. How can I do that? I want to open a business. I know you may not know, but can you connect me to someone who does? Networking is critical. Remember, your network is your net worth. Do you want to have a friend who talking nonsense and can't give you good ideas or contribute? Or do you want to have a network of people that are better than you, that can grow, that can learn? And as I said, that has been one of my successes as well. I've been associating, and actually my friends, as I call them, laugh at me because every time I go in this group or I hang out with people, I'm often the youngest person, and it's because people my age don't have anything to offer me in the areas that I want to learn. I want to learn from people who are more successful than I am, who's actually been where I am in my life. I want to be with people who's past that stage, so I want to learn about how to get to the next level, not how to stay at this level. And you have to think about what you want and how to get there. And self-marketing management, another big topic that I often talk about, but I talk about it when I present on presentation skills and branding, self-branding. But always remember, in terms of your marketing, everything that you do is marketing yourself. The way in which I speak to you all today, it's a form of marketing me. If I attend a webinar, if I attend an in-person event, how I dress is marketing, how I speak is marketing. And one that I don't even want to start to speak about today, because I know I am wrapping up now to pass over to Cindy, is how you present on your social media is the biggest form of marketing. Understand that HR practitioners and business leaders are more involved in poaching people and self-selecting and headhunting people rather than putting an advertisement out. Especially when you reach your executive level, people are not putting an ad out and asking you to apply. People are reaching out and saying, Kimberly, I like what you're doing with CRYC, so I have a job to offer. What will it cost to bring you over to my company? And I've been poached from my last company, and I know Cindy again could talk about in her role, either she may have been poached or she probably would have been tasked with the responsibility of finding someone, or her boss. And at this level, I can tell you there are CEOs and chairmen and directors who will say, Kimberly, and I want Cindy because I saw her on LinkedIn and she's doing great work, and I met her at the chamber event and I love that girl's personality, and you see, for this vacancy I want her. So whatever it costs to bring her on board, you need to go and find that out and come back to the table and let us see if we could afford her. And that is self-marketing, being careful how you write, being careful what you put on social media, what you align to, the political rants, the sexual orientation rants, and whether you are whatever gender, whatever your beliefs are, you can share them, but respectfully. And I often hear young people say, but that's my private business. But I would sit here and I would tell you, as an HR practitioner, we want people who can maintain and project themselves throughout, because we cannot have someone in management who sits and tries to carry the company's core values, but in their private social media, as they call it, private, and you all know it's public, they're speaking about something else, or they're doing something else, and understanding that. So I don't want to spend time talking much more about self-marketing, because I will go on with that. That's a whole 1 hour session with branding and public projection and all of those things. So this is just like a synopsis of the self-management, and understanding different categories and accepting the responsibility and the accountability for yourself. And you would see everything here starts with self. It's about you doing it and what you can do, the ways in which you can develop, and you can reach out to get the support. So that actually wraps up my presentation, which I hoped would have been a little bit shorter. So I'm not sure if you all are open for questions or comments, or if we will just go straight into Cindy's session.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chan, for that lovely. Oh, just now. Hi. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, thank you so much for everything, all the knowledge you have given to us today. And yes, if anybody have any questions, you can send in the chat. I'm sure Ms. Chan will be so grateful to respond to you. And I'd just like to stress on a few points that you have mentioned that really opened my eye, such as stress and time management, to know how to handle when you enter the workforce, right? And other things like how to dealing with people and stuff like that. Because when we all have personal lives and we all have stress in our personal and business life. And we need to know how to handle and manage both at the same time, because we can't just leave the workforce, right? We can't do that. We have to all go in with open mind and be open with one another. And having someone such as the toll-free number you have mentioned is so vital, right? Other points such as communication, being able to talk to one another, and especially that body language. I think that a lot of young people don't understand how important body language is, such as a simple roll eye, such as the way they slouch and, they tilt their head and all the different things that we don't notice that we actually do. It is so important to show how much respect we have to the person that we are communicating to. Right? And another important point that you mentioned was self-motivation. Oh my gosh, finding your why, knowing what drives you, regardless of your situation. That is very important in youth because we are so young and we may not know our whys as yet. And that is okay. With the continuation of how we would continue developing this organization, we'll eventually develop it. And that's really important because I myself don't really have a lot of self-motivation, but I see people like you. I see people like Miss Wilson, and I look up to women like you guys. And I said, I want to be like this. I want to become this kind of woman when I get older. I may not have the why, but I know what I want, And there are lots of many other points like adaptability. And of course, a main key point you just touched on was on that social media. The things that we post on social media, we might think it's very harmless, but it's not. It's never really gone. That status for 24 hours will live on, could always be reposted, and it will always be there, and it could always come back and become something negative on your life, right? So we might think it's a joke now, but it can be something really serious in the future. So I'd like to thank you. I see we have some questions here from Teddy Ann. How would you suggest we as young people evaluate companies to ensure that they do not habitually take advantage of our willingness to contribute? That's for you.
All right. So I would take account. I'd be accountable and I'll take responsibility for the companies that do this, right? So as young people, you have to evaluate, and evaluation comes from you have the access of the internet and social media, and you go online and you look for what the company's values are, look at what the companies are aligned to. And sometimes you just never know. Sometimes you just go into an organization, you go to the interview, they tell you they want to come in. And an example of this, which is negative for organizations, would be internship programs. And many times some organizations will say we have an internship program, the employees are going to come, or even the OJT program, and they bring the OJTs on board and they have them do a full portfolio of work. And that is basically taking advantage of the willingness to contribute. And you have to recognize that early on. Now, I would say this again to you. Now, this is not me picking up for organizations or companies because I sit at a managerial level. I frown upon it. If I have an internship program, there's specific things that needs to get done. And I will take accountability first, but I have also been in organizations that do take advantage. So you have to really evaluate it. But again, I look for the positive in things. If you go into an organization that is giving you more than you are supposed to be doing or committing to do, if it is developing you and you are getting an opportunity to learn from it, I would say take advantage of the learning, the growing, the development, and then eventually you look for something better. But as young people to really evaluate, the only things you have is really when you interact, let's just say at the interview level, ask questions. Ask them what is going to be expected of you. And nothing is wrong with at that stage asking if there's a job description to be prepared. Look at your social media, see if their values align to yours. And you will see press releases, you will hear people say things. And one of the things again that I do is, if not for an internship, but regularly, I would look at, let's just say, Caribbean jobs. As an HR practitioner, I look at Caribbean jobs every single day. It's one of the first things that I do because I get the prompt. And I could already tell you that there are organizations who every single month or 2 months, they're advertising for the same position. And that tells me something about the organization. It tells me that maybe the role is too heavy, the compensation is not good, whoever is managing is not doing it properly. And those are some of the indicators that I would use, but it is honestly very difficult to quickly identify, because you will see it and people will paint a big picture and they will tell you all the great things about the role that you're coming into, and sometimes you get into the role and realize that it is not what it is. But you again have to self-evaluate and say, listen, I'm going to make the sacrifice because it is learning for me. It is not probably compensating me for what I'm doing, but it gives me an opportunity to learn. I can't get another job yet, or let me look for another job. When I find one, I leave that organization. But it is difficult, and I do accept responsibility. And I could say that organizations in some cases have taken advantage, and the examples are the OJTs and the interns. I hope I answered as best as I could. That is Tedian.
Yes, thank you so much for that enlightening response. However, we are a bit short on time, so there's another question in the chat, and I will feel free to go and respond to it. You can go ahead and respond. However, I would like to introduce another lovely guest, Ms. Cindy Wilson, sorry about that, who is an accomplished human resource professional with a track record of success spanning 15 years. As a seasoned HR leader, she has played a pivotal role in overseeing all aspects of human resources, practices, and processes, driving the design and implementations of people and organizational development strategies. Her expertise lies in leading transformation and change management initiatives that align with the organization's strategy and operational plans. With a strong focus on promoting corporate values and enabling organizational success, Cindy excels in areas such as job design, recruitment and selection, performance management, learning and development, and talent management. Her dedication to improve employee engagement and experience within organizations has led her to develop high trust, high performance cultures through analysis and targeted action planning. Throughout her career, Sydney has showcased her proficiency in strategy, human resources management. She has successfully optimized human capital through effective performance and talent management, succession planning, training and development, and competency-based progression planning. Her strategic mind and forward-thinking approach have consistently delivered results that contribute to organizational growth and success. Cindy's commitment to continuous learning and professional development is evident through her pursuit of a PhD from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. She holds a MSc in Global Human Resource Management from the University of Liverpool and a BSc in Management Studies from the University of the West Indies. Additionally, she is a certified facilitator within the Leadership Management Institution for the suite of leadership development programs. She has also attained certificates in change management from ProSci and as a Balanced Scorecard Associate from the Balanced Scorecard Institute. With a passion for leveraging her expertise to drive organizational excellence, Sydney is driven to make a positive impact on employee engagement and overall business performance. Her comprehensive knowledge combined with her academic achievement and certification positions her as a trusted HR professional who brings value to any organization she serves. I would like everyone to welcome beautiful Sydney Wilson.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you so much for inviting me here and allowing me to share with everyone today on Team. Special thanks to Kimberly for inviting me to chat with you all today. I hope that this presentation will be beneficial to all. So if we want to get right into it, it's really good that we had that session with Kimberly early on, really focused on self and self-management, because self is the foundation of everything. So even where I'm going to talk to you all on teamwork and
Pardon me, Ms. Wilson.
Sorry.
Pardon me, there seems to be a problem with your audio. Some participants aren't hearing you too clearly.
Okay, tell me if you're hearing me better.
A tad bit.
Okay. All right, hold 1 second for me, all right? Are you hearing me good now?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. All right, so as I was saying, Kimberly spoke about self-management, and really self is the foundation of everything. So I'm going to talk about communication and teamwork, where we interact with others, but how we interact with others is really informed by self. So, thank you for Kimberly for that really informative session just a short while ago. So when we talk about teamwork and communication, I'm going to pass the learning objectives. When we look at teamwork, I don't know how many of you all are familiar with the Dream Team, the United States Dream Team that went to the Olympics in 1992, basketball. I'm sorry, when I was younger, I was a real fan of basketball. And in 1992, we had, that team formed of really skilled and talented players from the United States go to the Olympics. And, within that team, we had persons like Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Pippen, really, really talented players. But how many of us know that before they actually earned their title as a Dream Team, they lost a college basketball team in one of their first scrimmages? And that's because they weren't playing together as a team. They were playing together as individual, really, really talented players, but they did not work together as a team. And therefore they lost to a very amateur team who was, players who were still in college. So Michael Jordan says that talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. And that is very true, not only in basketball, but in business and in life. And Helen Keller, who is an author, she as well says that alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And I had a short video that I wanted to show with you all, but I know that we're short on time. So I'm going to drop it in the chat so that you all can have a view of the video on your own time, okay? Let's look at some definitions. What I do want is if you all could drop in the chat for me some synonyms for teamwork, as many synonyms as we can get, and I'll look out for them. It'll take about a minute to do that. Cooperation again, togetherness, unity again, yes, collaboration, a really good one, partnership, coordination, right? So, I think we all have the gist of it. And when we think about teamwork, we have three concepts that we're looking at. We're looking at the team. The team is a small number of persons or a group of persons with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, performance of goals, and the approach to which they will be held accountable. When we look at teamwork, of course, is the process of working collaboratively with a group of persons in order to achieve a goal. And understand it's always towards achieving a goal. And team building, which is another concept related to teamwork, is our ability to identify and motivate individuals and individual employees to work together as a team towards achieving a greater objective. So why do companies want to utilize teams? Because teamwork is vital within your organization, bringing persons together, working towards a common purpose, towards common goals and ambitions with common attitudes, very cohesively towards achieving the organization's objectives. Again, teamwork equals success in business. And I have another video there that I'll share in the chat. So when we're looking at the autonomy of teams, and we want high-performing teams, or HPTs as we refer to them in the business world with all our crazy acronyms. When we're looking at the autonomy of high-performing teams, we're looking for shared purpose, again, understanding that why. And if you do not understand your own personal why, it's difficult for you to connect with the why of a group, of a team that you have to work with. So it's important, again, that self that Kimberly spoke about. Clear goals, commitment, and engagement on the team. Defined roles and responsibilities. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, when they're supposed to do it. Accountability and responsibility. Kimberly spoke about, being able to take accountability for yourself and being responsible for your own performance. But when we talk about accountability and responsibility in the team setting, we want to be accountable for the overall performance of the team. So everybody on the team has to share that value of, being accountable and responsible. Effective communication, and I put that one in bold because we're going to talk about communication a little later on. Mutual respect and trust. Embracing diverse opinions, especially in this time where we have, so many diverse opinions across the board. You need to be able to hear people out and understand that you may not agree with everyone, but you're going to accept that they have the right to have their opinion. Consensus-driven discussions, which includes inclusive decision-making. So as a team, we're coming together to make decisions for the better of the team and not for independent or individual gain. We're looking at the gains of the team. Respect and freedom and autonomy. Of course, we discussed that a little while ago. Strong leadership skills. You need somebody or several persons on the team that have those leadership capabilities to lead the team. Innovative thinking and continuous improvement. You don't want a static team. You want a team, especially for high-performing teams that are always growing, always looking for new ways to do things. An outward mindset. Extremely important when we're talking about teamwork. And I'll talk specifically about outward mindset a little bit shortly in a little while. And of course, efficient processes. How we get things done in an efficient manner. Our ability to execute as a team, speaks to whether or not we'll be considered a high-performing team. So mindset and teamwork. When we think about mindset, I wanted to have us to do a quick poll. So if you don't mind me stopping sharing my screen for a short minute, I want to put technology is not my friend right now. Stop sharing. All right. I want to drop in the chat a link for us to do a quick poll. So bear with me. All right, there it is. This one question. The question is, of course, I generally consider how my actions impact others. So if you could just answer that question very quickly for me, and I will look to see the results and share the results with the team. Right. And one other question as well, because we want to compare these results. There's another question there for you. If you could take a quick look at that and respond for me. And I'll tell you why I've asked you these questions. So thus far, we have 31 responses in relation to the CRYC question. And I'm going to take a look at the results. And I want to share these results with you as well. All right. Okay. So let me see if I can quickly share these results. The reason I asked you that question is really because I want us to think about mindset. And when we think about mindset, when we think about outward and inward mindset, we're talking about how we view people and how we interact with others in teams, right? So when I look at the results for the first question, which was asked in relation to how I view myself as, impacting others, the majority of persons who responded to that question indicated that they rated themselves between 7 to 10 in relation to, they truly believe that they are very much insightful on how their behavior impacts others. But the converse happens when I ask people about people who generally, if other persons generally see how they interact with others is something that's important. And the majority of persons, over 60% of persons indicated that they would rate those persons, other people, from 1 to 5. And the reason I asked that question is because how we see other persons as interacting with us. Back to the presentation here. And how we see ourselves interacting looks at our inward mindset versus an outward mindset. So when we have an outward mindset, you're highly aware of the group's goals and how your behaviors interact and affect the ability of the group to achieve its goals. When you have an inward mindset, however, you're highly focused on your personal goals and your concern for the needs of others in the group doesn't really matter as much. So when we look at inward mindset, if we look at it a little bit more deeply, we see, and with an inward mindset, you see people as the vehicles for you to achieve your goals. If they can't help you achieve your goals, they're either an obstacle or they're irrelevant for you to ignore them. You look at your goals without considering how it will impact others. So me getting a good score, it's just about me getting a good score. It's not about anybody else on the team getting a good score. I want to get an A, and therefore everybody else is either just a means of me getting an A or they're a hindrance to me getting an A. I often worry about how other people think about me. When you have an inward mindset, you're looking at yourself. You are the one that's important and everybody else is second, right? So you're the main character in the movie and everybody else is, just there to carry on your show. I forget to check in with people who I'm working with. So you don't really care about how other persons are feeling, how they are coping with the task at hand. It's all about you and you achieving your goal. And with an inward mindset, blame is also a tendency when there's frustration within the group, when there's frustration in the team. How would you think that this kind of person would show up in a team? Do you think that this person would be able to be an effective member of the team? Give me a thumbs up or down. Right, so this person is not really going to be an effective member of a team. But when we look at someone who has an outward mindset, however, these persons see other individuals who have needs of their own and challenges of their own and goals of their own, and wonder how they can contribute to other people being able to achieve their goals. Persons with outward mindsets have their own personal responsibility in a way that supports other members of the teams and their responsibility. They're willing to share information and resources. They're not hoarding information. They're willing to check with the group to make sure that there's consensus about the way that we achieve the goals, and they love collaborating with others. So when you're looking at yourself, kind of do some reflection on yourself and how you may show up when you have to interact with a team. The group work and all that stuff that we do in school is so very important because it really does inform how we interact with persons when we go into the workspace. And I'm sure that as I, read out those key points on inward and outward mindset, you were able to think of yourself or other persons and how they may be showing up as either having an inward or outward mindset. And mindset as well does affect communication. So when we talk about communication, I wanted to talk specifically about some of the principles of constructive dialogue. We need to practice active listening, but we also need to practice effective speaking. So, sometimes, especially if you're a person who, as people are talking, you're thinking about what you're going to say, how you're going to respond. Take some time, stop, actually listen to what the person is saying, ask questions so that you are sure that you understand what they're saying. If you are, a person who builds up a wall and you stop talking and you're just listening, that could also be frustrating to the person you're communicating with. So take the opportunity to as well let them know your point of view so that you can foster understanding. Respect diverse views and ideas, as I indicated before. That plays very heavily in how you interact with a team. Emphasize learning as a purpose, and that again is why you ask questions. Use proper communication skills. I'm sure that you all would have had and done communication courses. Bring all those learnings back to the fore. Be very intentional when you're communicating, and pay attention to yourself so that you can pick up on where you may have gaps that you need to improve on. Prioritize building relationships in your communication. Engage in difficult discussions. Don't shy away from having hard conversations. Don't shy away from conflict. Deal with it head on. Ask the questions that you need to ask and resolve as you go along. And be open to be transformed by a situation. That is specifically important because as you are communicating to others, remember, you don't know everything. So be willing and open enough to allow people to change your mind. Changing your mind is not a bad thing. Changing your mind just shows that you're open to other people's opinions and that you understand that you may not have all of the answers. And then we look at collaborative communication. Again, because we all come from different backgrounds, different cultural and individual settings, we all grew up differently. Disagreements are bound to happen, and we must accept this. They are inevitable. And conflicts arise out of miscommunication, not taking on other people's opinions, cultural diversity, saying okay in one culture might be fine, not in another. So you as well need to understand that all these factors could create, disagreements when we try to communicate. And it's often not what you say, but how you say it that causes the conflicts, and we need to be aware of that. Whether it's within a professional setting or in a personal setting, how you say something carries quite a bit of weight. And I wanted from here to introduce you guys to a concept called, conversational intelligence. There are a lot of different types of intelligences, and most times we're familiar with the IQ as being the major one that people look at. But our ability to carry on constructive conversation is an intelligence in itself. It's one that we often take for granted. And language is an extremely powerful tool, as you may or may not know. The tongue is mightier than the blade. That is a very pertinent quote, because you can do a lot of harm just with the words that you use when you're communicating to someone or a group of persons. And when we look at conversational intelligence, there are 3 levels that we usually engage in conversations. Level 1 is where we have a lot of distrust and so forth. We are just telling and asking. We are not looking to, find solutions together. Level 2 is where we are asking some questions, we're building some trust, but we're still waiting to see. And level 3 is where we're really collaborating, where we're experimenting, where we're asking the questions, like genuine questions, looking for real responses. That is where we move from level 1, which is the I, which is that inward mindset focused on self, to the we, which is that partnership with that outward mindset where we're focused not just on self, but on others. And so I just put up the matrix again here for us to see it in a different form, but to really drive home the point about language. We can use negative language and positive language. Negative language speaks to, telling people what cannot be done. Whereas you can flip that and say, okay, as Kimberly said in her session, it's not about what cannot be done, but maybe how can we achieve what we need to achieve. Suggest alternatives instead of, shutting people down. Negative language, again, is about putting people on the spot, about blaming, about intimidation. Use it, try to always focus on using positive language in your communications. And when we talk about our communication toolbox, I wanted to talk about 2 things in particular. One is that of questions. Toddlers have mastered the art of questioning. They know how to question, and they're questioning at that point because they're trying to learn. And we can take a page out of a toddler's book by asking effective questions, genuine questions, to get real answers. So effective questions are looking at decisions. We're asking people for options on how you can get past an obstacle. Effective questions are working through issues rather than putting up blocks. So you may ask, in what way can I be most helpful to someone right now? Effective questions are looking at performance enhancement. What would you like to have improved in what we did? So you're asking questions because you're trying to understand another person's viewpoint, which helps to create a larger scenario that you're all both working in, and can possibly lead to a solution that neither of you all would have thought of when you first entered the conversation. And the other tool that I wanted to talk about very quickly is body language. Kimberly mentioned this in her session. Again, it's not necessarily what you say, but how you say it, and your body language says a lot. There are numerous books, websites, videos that you all can go to learn about body language, but it is extremely important that you take some time to do that research, to understand, because as you present yourself to the public, to others, people are subconsciously reading the cues that you send out. And you want those cues to be positive cues. The thing about body language, however, is that it often doesn't lie. Though you can learn how to mask some of it, your body is always sending out these signals, even without you knowing. So it really talks about, having to be intentional about yourself, looking at yourself, analyzing yourself, and looking at how you're projecting to others. So some forms of body language would be facial expressions. Facial expressions, luckily for us, in terms of trying to read them, are universal across all cultures. So sad looks the same way in Trinidad as it looks in Japan, as it looks in Africa. Body movement and posture as well, tells people how you are feeling in a particular situation. If your shoulders are slumped and, or your arms are crossed, etc., that sends a very specific signal to the person that you're interacting with. Gesture is one of my favorites because I can't seem to get control of my hands. I'm always making gestures when I'm talking. But gestures also tell people a lot about you. And, they read these things on a very subconscious level. So persons are not looking at the gestures that you're making and necessarily making very physical notes, but they are making subconscious judgments about who you are and what you have to say based on how you are carrying about yourself. Eye contact. Again, very important. And I always talk to people about eye contact when, especially in an interview setting. You make eye contact to show people that you are engaged and you're interested in what they're saying. Stare them down to make them feel like you're some sort of stalker, right? But you make appropriate eye contact, moving your eyes away, coming back to the person. If you're talking to a panel, you kind of look at the person who asks the question, you make eye contact with them, you float your eyes along across the rest of the group on the panel, you go back to the individual. Again, this has to be done naturally because it could look very awkward if you're intentionally trying to do this, but it's something that can be practiced, right? Touch. Think about how when you shake someone's hand and it's a weak handshake, what that tells you about the individual, what judgments you're making about an individual based on that. Space. When two people are sitting together and either they're very close together or they're sitting very far away, what can you infer from looking at how they position themselves? And again, voice, which speaks to how you enunciate, how you use your words, how you project your voice in a particular setting. If you're very mousy and you're speaking at a very low tone versus if you're speaking up and allowing people to hear your voice, those two things send very different messages. Right, so as we continue in talking about communication, I wanted to talk about personality as it relates to communication. As I said before, everybody has, came from different backgrounds, different cultural settings, different upbringings, but we also all have different personalities. And I've used the DISC profile. I don't know if you all are familiar with this profile, but when you do this assessment, and it gives you a report telling you where you fall within these 4 quadrants. So persons who are, get D as their profile are very task-oriented and outgoing. Then you have persons who are a bit more reserved on the C end. You have people who are very influential, that's your marketing people, your advertising people, your sales people who are always wanting to talk and socialize, very people-oriented, very outgoing. And then you have persons on the S quadrant who are, again, very reserved, dependable, supportive, etc. Now, it's important to say at this point that all of us have elements of all of these things within us, but personality is on a continuum. So you may be at one point more domineering or task-oriented, and at another point more reserved and supportive and cooperative, etc. It depends on the situation you're in as well that kind of impacts this, but people have parts of them that are more dominant than others. So when we think about communication and personality, it's important for us to understand our own personalities and how that might affect how we communicate and want to be communicated to. But it's really important, especially in a team setting, that we understand other person's personalities and we can pick up their cues so that we can understand how we can communicate best with them to be able to get the best results. So when we look at someone with a D profile, again, these persons are drivers. They are, very task-oriented, as I said, very self-assured, very decisive and efficient, etc. If you want to influence somebody with this particular profile, you want to make sure that you're very clear and specific in your communication. You're getting to the point and you're going to them with logical, organized facts, and you're prepared for that discussion. Don't go to them without your receipts, right? You have to be short and concise because these persons are often always busy. They always have something to do. So they don't have much time to have you, trying to get a point across. You're presenting a big picture to them because they are not into going into the fine details, and you're being very straightforward and you're providing alternatives. If you're trying to influence someone who is an influencer, and again, these persons are very optimistic, enthusiastic, they're very sociable. So you have to be ready to relate and socialize. So plan for a lot of interaction with these persons. They want to talk. They want to talk about everything. You have to be optimistic and provide testimonials of whatever you're trying to convince them of. You have to show them how it's going to work for them. You need to ask their opinion because they like to talk so much. You need to give them an opportunity for them to as well contribute. And of course, underline collaboration because they want to socialize, they want to connect, they want to collaborate. If you're trying to influence someone who's a supporter, you need to give them time to prepare. So you might want to send the information ahead of time so that they can digest the information. You don't want to rush them. You want to take some time to break the ice before you actually jump into the topic at hand. You want to show interest in them as an individual, ask very specific questions, get clarity in relation to what we're trying to achieve here. And this is a long-term conversation. These persons are interested in the long term because they are very persistent in terms of their characteristics. And for persons on the C end of the spectrum, these persons are very cautious and could be slow to change, but they're dependable, also persistent, agreeable, and cooperative. They're very much focused on compliance. So when you're coming to them, trying to communicate, you need to send and present an agenda up front, again, so that they can have some time to digest it and probably jot down whatever questions they would want to ask. Be very straightforward and direct and go into the detail. These people love details. So you need to be able to show them, like when you're in school and the math teacher told you you need to show your working. These are the people that want to see the working, and they will go through the working to make sure that the answer that she came up with was correct. Provide them with information and solid facts. Again, for persons in this realm, you want to go with your receipts. You want to have all your information readily at hand because that's the only way that you're going to get their buy-in. And you need to have very reasoned, logical objectives as well for these individuals. And I have this here, not necessarily because it's related to communication, but I love this model. It's something that I've adapted to all areas of my life. But when I think about communication in relation to the 4 agreements, and I don't know if you all are familiar with this 4 agreements, it's a book, and I could put the author of the book and all of that in chat for you. The 4 agreements speaks to how we should live our lives as an individual to be able to get the best results in our life. And Kimberly spoke about self a lot. And this is where I think that, you can see yourself and how you can propel your ability to work in a team and communicate effectively. So the first agreement is, of course, as we see it here, to be impeccable with your word. Here you are understanding what you want to communicate. You're being very clear in your communication. You're meaning what you say and saying what you mean. And you're not, saying something and then going back on your word. Don't take anything personally, sorry, is the second agreement. And this is where you understand that everybody is coming into a communication scenario with their own thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, which was supported by their upbringing and their socialization. So the way that people may react may have very little to do with you and more to do with what they are going through personally. So if someone, for instance, in a particular setting, gets very angry and shouts at you and so forth, whilst you should not accept disrespect, you can be empathetic to understand that someone would behave that way if they possibly may be dealing with something at home, for instance, that they can't cope with, and therefore they're lashing out at other persons. So try not to take things personally, because people are usually dealing with their own stuff and sometimes we project it onto others. Don't make assumptions, being the third agreement. Similar to the second one, you're not making assumptions on anything. You are asking questions. You're trying to get to the root, and that is where we go back to that questioning as part of our toolbox in terms of communication. We're really asking questions to learn and understand. We're being open to the option of maybe even changing our mind on a particular subject matter. Asking questions is extremely important, and I wouldn't say it on the call, but you know what they say about assuming, right? So I'll leave that there for you to go and research if you're not aware. And the last agreement is to always do your best. Your best will look good on some days. It may not look so great on other days, but you are always putting your best foot forward. You're always putting your best foot forward in terms of your communication and how you interact with the team. And again, you're being very intentional about those things. Right, so we're coming to the end of the session here, and I had a video that I wanted to show to focus on remote communication. Do I have enough time to share this video? It's about 2 minutes long.
Yes, you do.
Okay, all right, so let me see if I can go into advanced sharing and let me stop sharing for a minute. Advanced, right, that's where I'm able to share video. Okay, for some reason it's not opening up, but okay, let me just quote it very quickly. I'll put it in the chat. So we're doing a remote communication right now, right? And Kimberly kind of did touch on this in her presentation as well. Here we really focus on, maintaining eye contact. So if you're working with you're on Zoom or whatever, you're trying to maintain eye contact, which is very weird because you're not seeing people and you have so many persons on the call. So you make sure your camera is set up right, you're focused on the camera, you're making eye contact with the camera as much as possible. And you're trying to engage as well, understanding that, things like texting and so forth can come across, your tone can come across much differently than you would think it would come across to someone if they're not actually interacting with you. Use facial expressions as much as possible as well, because when you're on camera and you're not in a person's space, they don't have the rest of your body language to read. So you want to be intentional about that as well. There are particular things that we need to think about when we are looking at remote communication. And I'll put the video in the chat because I think it's really important for you to have a view of it and to understand specifically the world that we're in right now, because that's, being on Zoom calls, on Teams calls, etc., is just so prominent. And, it allows us to communicate with so many persons at the same time and not have to be in the same space. So, you want to as well be very careful about how you come across to persons when you're on screen. Right. And that kind of brings me to the end of my session. I don't know if persons have at this point in time any questions, comments that I can take.
Come on, guys, don't be shy. Are there any further questions?
No questions?
Okay, well, if there aren't any questions at this point in time, I would like to move on to some of the closing remarks, but do feel free to still include them in the chat while we still have some time. I've personally had the core beliefs of calmness, reason, and focus for as long as I could recall. These are always based on observations and experiences that have been with me for quite a while, but the confidence to act upon them has always admittedly been a challenge for me. But after listening to these two professionals sharing their own perspectives, particularly about self-reflection and the power of the set and unset, was very reassuring for me. I would like to close things off by thanking our two presenters, Ms. Cindy Wilson and Kimberly Chan, for taking the time for sharing their wealth and knowledge with those in attendance, both on the Zoom and over YouTube. To you, our members, thanks for attending and participating in this masterclass. And I will now quickly hand you over to Jared, who will provide some further updates.
All right, good evening again, everyone. I would officially like to say thank you to, Ms. Kimberly Chan Bujam, as well as Ms. Cindy Wilson for, devoting their time to this session here today and for imparting on us, the knowledge. This is something that we can't even, pay for, that wealth of information that we received today. And, I really would like to thank them, for, just giving the time and giving back to us. Right. One of the things that so someone said that they loved it. I also did. One of the things that I could say I would have gained, gained from in terms of Kimberly's presentation would have been on change management and stress management. And why I stress on those two is, because as an attorney, in practice, those are two things that you definitely, I would have come across and, have difficulty with many times. Especially when you have court virtually and, the stress management, when you have to deal with difficult people at times. And sometimes it could even be a case where you have to deal with, a colleague. And in terms of the mindsets that Cindy would have mentioned, looking at, how we consider others and how others consider us. For me personally, I tend to, always be considerate of others. But sometimes I would find that, it's not, reciprocated, right? Sometimes I do think that others are as considerate, towards me as I am with them, right? But, above all, I, officially like to say thank you to them, as well as thank you to all the participants who are here today. I mean, without you, we wouldn't have had a successful session. And I do hope that, you all will tune in and look out for the other sessions that we have. Just to give an example of some of the sessions that you all can look forward to that, that training and development portfolio has been spearheading. We definitely going to have a session on emotional intelligence, youth development and leadership, entrepreneurship and financial independence, self-employment and development, goal setting and getting things done. And these areas, we would have selected these sessions based on the youth skills survey that was done in January at the Caribbean Youth Leaders Summit, right? So, in keeping with our mandate, we definitely want to maximize on these sessions, and we hope that you all will tune in to them. So do look forward, do look out for them. Check your emails, you may see it on WhatsApp, check our social media, and we hope to see you all again next time. Thanks again for coming out.